Saha na bhavatu, saha no bhunaktu, saha viryam karavavahi, tejasvi navaditam astu ma viddishavahi. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. May that one protect us both. May that one nourish us both. May we work together with great energy. May our study lead to our illumination. May we not unnecessarily cavil with each other. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. So this is the Vedanta series question answer. As usual, I shall mute my microphone. We always have something in common. You don't know what I'm going to say, and nor do I. So if you formulate your question, and we'll see what answers come.
Yeah, I have a question actually. Yeah. Swamiji, that actually when we are in a family, in a group, so the give and take gifts takes place. Like we accept clothes from others, gold or money, whatever we accept, we tend to get those tendency of that people, through gifts. So how do we, eliminate like this issue?
So I'm not quite clear about your question, because how do we, somebody gives us a gift and we accept it, and are we taking somebody's bad energy by taking the gift, or is it our own energy? Can you just clarify that for me? Thank you.
Yes. Like suppose if we accept gold or something like that, so we are not like before, like few years before, like I was not fond of gold. The moment I touched, somebody gave me. The moment I touched, I started feeling for it. So I don't know if I had this before, but I remember that I never had this before. So that's what I was thinking, like, what is all this? Like, are we getting that trait or something like that?
Yes, okay. So if you say I never had this tendency before, you might want to revise that position, because somewhere inside, deep in your psyche, will be a desire for it. This is why Ramakrishna summarizes what we call, let's say, greed, a desire to possess something. This is something that we have to transcend, these two directives, lust and greed. And so the greed side of it is already in us. It happens that we take a liking to something new, literally, let's say, gold. And Ramakrishna gives us a personal example also, because he was given a nice coat, and he strode up and down dressed like this. And then he realized, oh, this is a cloak of vanity. Let me take it off and stamp on it. In other words, he was discriminating. He was carefully working out rationally how this is going to affect him, how it's affecting him now, and how it's affecting him in the future. Now, the fault is not that of a cloth. It's not that of gold. Gold is just gold, and gold has been around for a long time. There was a recent discovery in Stonehenge, where, say, 4,000-year-old skeleton was discovered, and gold was found there. And it was actually in the Bronze Age, because the weapon that was found there, or the arrowhead, was made from copper. So gold has been a commodity which people have liked for a long time. There are some cultures who didn't see the value in, let's say, silver. We're told that the indigenous South American people didn't find any value in it, but the Spanish people did. And so the Spanish people decided that they would go and look for this El Dorado. and so on. So it's not the object itself. The object is just an object. It's just a combination of atomic structures. But when we put a value on it, then that's different. So supposing you gave some gold ornaments to me as your legacy. Supposing you said you put in your will, I leave Swami Purnananda with all my gold net value, maybe 200,000, let's say, euros, or whatever it is, whatever currency you like, then will that make me greedy? Well, if it does, the greed must have been there in the first place. Or could I take that gold, sell it off, or smelt it and sell it? There are many companies or many shops that buy gold as a precious commodity. I think India is the prime consumer of gold, by the way, in the world. And then what will I do with that? I'll take that 200,000-300,000 euros and I'll put it into the Dublin Center. So for our development, or buy a property where we can have our own retreats or something like that. Or I might give it away to a charity. It doesn't matter, whatever the need is. Supposing Belumat calls me and says, look, we are in an emergency flood situation. We need urgent relief money. Then, okay, please you out. So it's our attachment to pleasure at the end of the day. And all actions really often involve this as a motive. Now, we have to refer now to a beautiful, beautiful lecture by Swami Vivekananda. And it is his first in the series, Karma Yoga. He delivered this in 1896, or at least what was transcribed at that date. And Swami Vivekananda has a very beautiful, simple way of putting things across and doing it with a first statement that makes you interested. So in his lecture entitled Karma in its Effect on Character, he said the word karma is derived from the Sanskrit kre. To do, all action is karma. Now that's a very important statement from the start, because maybe even in his day, people were using it as a synonym for fatalism. It's your karma. We hear often the statement, it's your karma. Your bad karma. Oh, I'm suffering from a bad knee. Yes, it's probably your karma. This is a very unhelpful statement. Because yes, all actions, no doubt, have their effects. And so karma incorporates that. And so Swami Vivekananda points out that it sometimes means the effects of which our past actions were causes, yes. But in the yoga associated with action that we call karma yoga, we have simply to do with the word karma as meaning work. And the goal of man is knowledge, not pleasure. He'll tell it later, not pleasure. So the reason why we feel, oh, that's gold. I like gold. Where's more gold? If you give me that, I can put it on. You have to also examine some of your motives. Do you like gold because when you wear gold, let's say, an ornament, people will think, oh, how beautifully attractive this person is. I like this person. In which case, it's not about the gold as such. It's about the image you want to portray to others that makes you feel good. And this is an aspect of what we might call egoism. Supposing we have this gold because we feel we'll be wealthy. Well, why would you want to be wealthy? It's because I want a life of pleasure. Well, then that means that internally you have a tendency toward pleasure. Now, is there anything wrong with that? Well, we learn. We learn from both pain and pleasure. Anyway, Swami Vivekananda goes on to say, the goal of mankind is knowledge. That is the one ideal placed before us by Eastern philosophy. Pleasure is not the goal of mankind, but knowledge. Therefore, karma yoga as a goal if you will, is to gain knowledge. How would we gain knowledge through action? Well, the cause of all miseries, he says, we have in the world is that people foolishly think pleasure to be the ideal to strive for. And so when you receive something and has that impact, you have to examine a little bit, discriminate. Why? Just as Sri Ramakrishna would have made this examination. Why am I? See the effect it has on me. I can observe it. The fact that I can observe it means I can change it also. And Ramakrishna is a beautiful example of all the human tendencies we have. Don't think that Ramakrishna is way over and above all the things that we're experiencing. That means that there's no real meaning to Ramakrishna presenting us with an ideal. Anybody who's talking about spiritual life or in any way has to be helpful will surely be somebody who understands the other side of it. And the only way to understand the other side of it is to have been through it yourself. And so we all have these experiences, but how do we value them? They're all in favor. They're all in our divine favor. They're all putting us on a learning curve to help us. So after a time, a person finds that it's not happiness, but knowledge towards which the person is going, and that both pleasure and pain are great teachers. We take the Bhagavad Gita, the first chapter, the despondency of Arjuna Vishada Yoga. There is that a useless chapter. After all, the teaching only begins in the second chapter. We have later in the month an organization is arranging a whole day for young children to teenagers on Bhagavad Gita with beautiful and exciting competitions and recitation of verses and what have you, and speeches and so on. So that's fine, and it's all in the second chapter. They were all at the second chapter. The second chapter, the Bhagavad Gita, the longest because it contains everything. And an elaboration comes in the next several chapters. So, no, the Bhagavad Gita specifically begins with this despondency, depression. Arjuna is suffering, as I've said many times, from a breakdown. And how do you deal with a psychological condition like a nervous breakdown? There must be some useful formula we can have. And so we learn much more actually from pain than we do from relief or pleasure. They're great teachers, says Swami Purnananda. And the person learns as much from evil as from good. Don't condemn somebody if they're, in our opinion, evil. That person is on a learning curve. Yesterday we went through the Ramayana. We have approximately one more chapter to go on this, Yuddhakanda. And we'll see that the story that Valmiki puts out, in my opinion, doesn't end and they lived happily ever after. It doesn't end like that. And look at all the ups and downs and difficulties that were there. And then Ravana depicted as somebody evil. And yet, you see, at the end of his life, he goes off to Swarloka. He goes off to the heavens. He gets a reward. What for? Evil? No. The fact that he was strong and courageous and obsessed with God in his own way. And so, as pleasure and pain pass before the soul, they have upon it different pictures, and the result of these combined impressions is what we call a person's character. I prefer to call it habit level, but Swami beautifully, because if you take the character of any person, it really is but the aggregate of tendencies, the sum total of the bent of the person's mind. You will find that misery and happiness are equal factors in the formation of that character. Good and evil have an equal share in molding character. And in some instances, misery is a greater teacher than happiness. And in studying the great characters the world has produced, he says, I dare say in the vast majority of cases, it will be found that it was misery that taught more than happiness. It was poverty that taught more than wealth. It was blows that brought out their inner fire more than praise. And if we take all the great sages, well, if we take, for example, if we're talking of the Ramayana, then we have to take into account King Janaka, because Sita is the daughter of Janaka. She's called Janaki. Imagine a king with no gold or no wealth or anything like that. But is he attached to it? And if he's attached to it, he'll more than likely be a Ravana. But if he is somebody who is not attached to it and uses it just as symbols of his office, symbols of power, and working for the welfare of his subjects, then this is a great rishi. Janaka was a great rishi. If we see all the deities in Hinduism, they're all draped in gold and jewels, because all of this wealth is a symbol. All of the abundance in the universe belongs to the Supreme. It doesn't belong to us. This kind of discrimination, which says, well, these are gifts and we are not attached to them because we understand the consequence, and it's feeding a habit, a tendency, that will set you on the right path. Now, significantly, when Sri Ramakrishna passed away, as every widow in the region, their habit is, you take off the jewelry and you take off any decoration on the dress, and Sharada Devi did this. And of course, Ramakrishna appears to her in a vision, please put the border back on and put the bangles on, and she resisted. What will people think of me? They'll think I'm a mad woman, or at least thwarting convention. And yet he insisted, and so she put the bangles on. And you see the beautiful bangles there in the photographic portraits that were initially done of Holy Mother. She was aged about 45, and there the bangles are on, personally portraying the fact that she not only represents Saraswati with the white cloth, but she also represents Lakshmi with the bangles. The mother's wearing gold bangles. What's the harm? Is she attached to them? Not at all. So it is our attachment that is. Now, how to get out of that attachment, that's a different question. And we have to use, first of all, this rationale, this discernment, which registers everything to the divine. We have no energy and power of our own. That's the conclusion we have to come to. In devotional life, we have to come to the position that we are a child of the mother, or a child of the father, or a child of the divine, or at least a servant. And therefore, all our action is one that engages instrumentality. We had a meeting yesterday. One subject was raised. Can you please thank us for our endeavors? Why are you not an instrument of the divine? Is it enough, not enough pleasure for you to be an instrument in the divine hands? In a convention lecture that was given in 1938, Swami Shivananda, Mahapurush Maharaj, and he gave, I'll make a synopsis of what he was saying. It'll be like a sword in the wielder's hand. It doesn't complain if it lands on a rock or if it's kept in the sheath or what have you. So we have to have this idea of instrumentality. We don't want thanks, we don't want praise. It's enough to be privileged to be doing the divine work, and all work is divine work if we take it in the right way, if we take out the selfishness, if we take out the prophet-actor complex that we call ego. If we take that away, then we are happy to be an open channel for divine grace to flow for the welfare of all beings. Why not? What a wonderful privilege. The key to social service is like that, you see. When you look at somebody in a condition, with a penetrating vision, you see the Lord there, Lord of the universe standing there, and your heart is moved, not out of any selfish motive about doing good, but as pure worship, recognizing the divine, seeing God in that, in all beings and all people. This is the characteristic of somebody who is one of steady wisdom. Going back to the Bhagavad Gita, that's it, Stita Prajna. You're working for the welfare of all beings. That's the highest state. And Ramakrishna makes this very clear with Naran, who spreads Ramakrishna's message throughout the whole world. I want samadhi. Please give me this nirvikalpa samadhi. Let me dissolve into the absolute. That's the purport of what he's saying. And Ramakrishna retorts, oh, I thought much better of you. I thought you'd be a big banyan tree, giving shelter to all and so on and so forth. Things like that. That's the highest state. Higher than samadhi, imagine. So as long as we have a body, we should use it for service. And as long as we have a sense of bodily existence, a sense of I, we will not get our freedom either. So this egocentricity has to go, being replaced with instrumentality. Now, if that's the case, then what is our reaction to gifts of gold and so on and so forth? We have to work out our reaction individually and to test out, are we attached to it? In other words, can we easily gain it today and lose it tomorrow? Quite happily. Can it come and can it go? So that would be my brief answer.
Yes, Swamiji. And one more related to that. Even when we are having food where others cook, I get a lot of mental disturbance. I don't know. While I am cooking, like I don't feel like. But when others cook for me, I get mental disturbance. Not all, but some of them. So what could be another reason for that?
Well, how do you feel about the food cooked by others? Do you have a suspicion that it's not pure?
No, I don't have any suspicion. It's just, I get a lot of negative thinking when I eat. So
yeah,
I don't.
So there are a couple of possible causes for this. Firstly, maybe the food doesn't suit your physicality. Everybody has to assess what suits them and what doesn't. I take myself as an example. I have to be now, in advancing age, extremely careful about my diet. And I have a scarring tissue on a hiatus hernia and so on and so forth. And so I have to be extremely careful not to produce acidity, to an excess of acidity. That is controlled by quantity and quality as well. Now, as a monk, I have no control over quality because we eat what is provided. That has always been my dictum. But if you have a choice, then make sure that you are careful about what you can eat, what you cannot eat, because the body and mind are so integrally associated that food can upset mental stability. If there is any kind of reservation, even a suspicion that you may not be obviously aware of, oh, I never cooked the food, so I'm having food and maybe this food is not pure. What do we mean by purity in food? Purity in food has nothing to do with hygiene. And let me qualify that. Of course, it has to be hygienic, no doubt. But it's more than that. We have to take all the material world as a combination of oscillating waves. And these oscillating waves are waves of energy. And what that means is that somebody's intention while cooking the food will have its effect. Somebody who is pure in mind and cooks pure food meaning my heart goes into it. You see, the wonderful ingredient in food, good food, will be love. Somebody cooks with love. That's the final ingredient, regardless of the contents. Then you accept it and you'll get benefit from it. Of course, all food should be preceded by an understanding that food, the eater, the hand that is offering it, the digestive fire that is consuming it, all of this is Brahman. we have this prayer that we say before our meals, taken from the 4th chapter, the Bhagavad Gita. You see, that Brahman, the highest principle, is the offering. We take it as an offering. We're offering it into Vaishvanara, the Lord that digests my food. And the clue about God's love is, well, he's digesting my food for free, not charging me anything, and arranging the whole universe so that I can have this food. We don't often think of that, What arrangement had to be made to produce the simplest food, that is, say, grains? Well, it required a lot of labor intensivity. It required somebody to plant the seed and harvest it, but without sunshine and rainfall, it doesn't work. And the sunshine and rainfall come from the fact that the earth is designed to provide it. There's a divine arrangement like that. And therefore the seas are there. And there's nothing like that if the earth is not part of a beautiful solar system where the earth is the correct distance from the sun to produce this life. And if the earth doesn't have this arrangement of spinning, going around, producing seasons, and going around the sun in its own way, producing a solar year. And if this solar system is not positioned in the outer regions, in the suburbs of the galaxy, it's not going to work. And so we are living in what science describes as Goldilocks conditions, ideal conditions for human life. Surely it's all a divine arrangement. So unless we put God into all activities, the eater, the fire of digestion, the additives there to the food, the hand that is offering it. See, truly, all you see this supreme principle in all actions, you go on to Brahman. Some people ask, how do I go into Brahman? How do I go into God? How do I attain this supreme knowledge that gives me liberation? Well, there's your answer in that prayer. If you are seeing God in all activities, in all actions, in all movements, in other words, registering it to count, not mine, then I immediately go to Brahman. And so how you do that, of course, well, you have to get used to doing that. And so you may have to decide if this food is suitable for your physique, number one. Number two, you have to decide how you're going to approach it, what attitude you're going to have toward it. That immediately purifies the food. And finally, you have to be thankful that all of this was supplied free of charge, without any catch, without any demand for return or reward. What a wonderful arrangement that all of the universe provides for us, a unique arrangement, and giving us the chance to digest this type of food. How do we find this food that we eat digestible? It's because man discovers fire. Probably about 1 million years ago, man discovers fire. And in this discovery of fire, a number of things happen. Firstly, his intelligence increases. Why? He doesn't have to spend his whole life gathering food. Our nearest biological relatives will be the chimpanzee, spending all his or her time in chewing leaves, indigestible things, and finding more and more of it. A lot of time spent on, in fact, the whole of his life spent on digestion, more or less. And so by cooking our food, we make things very easily digestible, and we don't have to continuously eat in order to supplement the digestive requirements. Not only that, but it gives us the opportunity, of course, apart from the advantage of standing upright, it gives us the opportunity to discuss these questions that we're discussing now, to reflect, to think, to evaluate and also to advance our evolutionary process toward God. And every part of the human is designed for that. From the erect spine, the bipedal motion that we have, the opposable thumbs, all of these kinds of things that the internal mover who's moving us forward, what is described as the internal controller, the inner controller, antaryaksham, the internal controller, Brahma, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad describes it as. Everything we view, we have to see as itself plus the inner controller inside. Before the earth was spinning, what was there? The divine was there, standing ready to attention, weaving a cocoon called the earth around itself. We can view it like that, and allowing arrangement to spin, getting the sunshine and all the energy from the sun, captured by the plants in an act of photosynthesis, with extreme intelligence behind it all. We can't say that anything in the universe is insentient. We find sentiency if we look close enough, even in a rock. A rock is dumb, it doesn't seem to do anything. But you see, what makes it a rock is a lattice arrangement contained in the minerals. And in order to get that, there has to be some energetic movement that is happening, which we call atomic energy. Everything is moving. And if you take a plumb line, a weight with a string, it knows where the center of the earth is. And you may say you're artificially amorphizing these and making it like a person. Well, yes, we can't avoid it. Even in Richard Dawkins' book, The Selfish Gene, he puts an attribute of selfishness to the gene, having said we're all just lumbering robots. So we have to take all this into consideration. And what is the result of it? Absolute thankfulness, a desire to worship the one and all of this, free of charge, making no demands on us. What a wonderful arrangement is there for us. So if we are thankful for the food, not just before, but also afterwards. Afterwards, a feeling of thankfulness. Thank you. You provided all of this through a complex arrangement of human effort combined with natural resources provided, all free of charge. And I had very little to do with it except put it in the mouth and offer it into the divine digestive fire, making it a yajna, making it an offering. If I do that, then I won't have any difficulty with food. If all food to me is sacred prasad, then everything will go well. That's the key to it.
Thank you.
Okay, so are there any other questions that you want to bring up?
How do you explain that there is fewer and fewer people who are Catholics, for instance? The churches are half empty in France, and even in India, there is less and less people. For instance, for Mother Teresa, the sisters usually came from Kerala, and there is less and less sisters. And even in your order, I think maybe you can feel it. So how do you explain this change? Do you think it will be different in the future, or is it the will of God that people don't go to church?
Thank you. That's a very good question. In the Ramakrishna order, there has been an increase of intakes, put that, or intake candidates over the years. When I first came across the order, let us say in 1968 or so, there were only about 600 ordained monks, and now there are, I don't know, probably a couple of thousand. Is it enough? No, it's not enough. And so with the increase in population, proportionately, you'd expect more, yes. Do people have an interest in dedicated spiritual life to the point of celibacy or monastic life and so on? No, but you see, I think it's an error to think that monastic life alone is spiritual. It's not. So-called normal household life can be made just as spiritual. It's a spiritual path that is designed for the majority of people. But is there a decline overall, a lack of interest in religion? Yes, there is. And I believe there are a number of reasons for it. Firstly, if religion is concerned with dogmas, doctrines, rituals, then in Swami Vivekananda's words, these are secondary details. The primary thing is to manifest the divinity. You may add from within. Manifesting this divinity. This manifesting this divinity is the primary natural evolution of man. But there will be delaying factors. And what are these delaying factors? Anything that takes our attention away. Anything that disallows us to continuously tune our attention into the glory of the divine. And there are many, many things that will do it. So one thing that will do it is, one key thing that will do it today is entertainment. The more sophisticated we are, the more we get involved in technology, the more our minds get deviated. And in this deviation of our minds, then we then become, as I say, our attention gets diverted, and that becomes a delaying tactic for us, a delaying thing for us. Now, there's a decline in interest in many regions, not globally necessarily, but many regions, Europe, America. I think those people who say that they believe in God in England, maybe only about 30% of those people. In Ireland, there's been a decline. Roman Catholic Church that used to have, let's say, in the 90% membership. And the last census is reduced now to something like, I think it's about 68, 69%. And what is the cause of that? Well, there are a number of causes. But one of the causes really would be there has been commensurate an increase in non-religious because people are much more interested in spirituality than they're interested in religion. And those people who say they're non-religious and the fall from, let us say, from year to year is commensurate with an increase of those who declare non-religious. Non-religious falls into about three categories, subcategories, if you will. Those who are materialist and atheist, and or at least agnostic and don't want anything to do with religion and have no interest in it, and they live their lives as if there were no tomorrow, and that's it. That's one side of it. Another side of it will be, I'm interested, I think there is a supreme principle somewhere. I think there's a God somewhere, but I'm prepared to find it myself. I'm interested in spirituality. I'm not interested in structured organizational religion. And then there's another who feel that they have not been served well by organizational religion. They think that actually, that essentially all religions are true, all paths can be true. A liberal-minded person who may or may not have found an alternative, either in Vedanta or Buddhism or some other thing. And so we are caught in an age where the Vedanta as religion has become extremely important, because what Vedanta offers is the foundation for all religions, creating an automatic unity amongst religions, amongst all people actually, regardless of religion, culture, creed, or so on. and so on. It is compatible with modern science. Often modern science is pitted against religion, religion being seen as an archaic, kind of out-of-date thing. But you see, curiously enough, this is not happening in the Islamic world. The Islamic world is gaining members. And so we are talking only about the Christian culture. Christian culture means Europe is Christian culture, or Judeo-Christian culture. And that's a fact that can be asserted with great deal of confidence. So the timing, the divine timing of Vedanta says, you please keep your religion or non-religion as you choose. But there's something fundamentally new that needs to be manifest. That underneath everything, the kingdom of heaven is within. And when you realize this, a whole new world opens up for you. All the answers get supplied to you. Knowledge. You see how Swami Vivekananda says the purpose of Karma Yoga is knowledge. The purpose of every spiritual intervention is knowledge. But what we're saying is knowledge doesn't mean what is called as aparavidya, inferior knowledge. This kind of knowledge is paravidya, of a superior. It is the intuition, the inner journey and discovery of your own divinity within. That gives you a level of ultimate freedom. It fills you with divine blissful goodness. It is resorting to your blissful base. And when you find it, even on the journey, every religion is talking about this. Every religion is talking about it. Jesus is talking about this. Buddha is talking about this. They may be using different languages, different parables, different stories, different approaches to the teaching, and everybody will have it. Even in the human personality, you'll find there are people who require the scope for expressing their feelings. Other people are more intellectually orientated, and other people are more kinesthetically orientated. And so, and then at the end of the day, everybody feels that the final method, the intensive method, where a final acute, refined tuning takes place, is in the realms of meditation. So japa, meditation, and so on, all of these are necessary. And then, like any other thing, tuning it up to the highest possible level, to the maximum. You know, if you talk about, let us say, the art of cooking, there are people who cook food. But there are other people who know the chemistry of cooking and who will cook a meal in such a way they have just increased the refinement which is there. And they have now delivered something that is absolutely tasty and spectacular at the same time. And so that is the same thing in all endeavors, including spiritual life. In spiritual life, we tune it up. So therefore, if you meditate in a sincere way, and I'm quoting Swami Purnananda here, he says, if you're meditating for 1 or 2 hours a day is not adequate. You have to meditate for more than 1 or 2 hours a day. Now, what do we mean by meditation? Let's put it more simply. Keeping your mind and allowing it to stay attuned to the glory of the self or God. This is what we all have to do constantly, continuously. And then in an intensive way, formal meditation also can be there. There's a question-answer session in a beautiful, useful book, Spiritual Teachings of Swami Purnananda. And he holds these question-answer sessions. And this is published by Swami Chetananda from St. Louis. So one question is like this. What is the proof of the God's existence? Because this is a contemporary question. And people will ask this question with a view to saying, I don't really want to engage in this spiritual life or this religion. I want to, because I don't think God exists. This is a more of a common thing in today's world, particularly in the area of modern science, and people are persuaded by scientists who are atheist or agnostic, thinking that a naturalistic explanation for things is a much better explanation than postulating an archaic extra-cosmic God. And so this contemporary question is put to Maharaj, otherwise known as Swami Purnananda. It goes like this: what is the proof of God's existence? Straight out. And just as straight, Swami Purnananda says, the seers have said. Now it's a very, very useful thing for a teacher to say, the seers have said. I'm not telling you, but those wise people have said this. It's like asking a question in physics, and you say, Stephen Hawking says, or Roger Penrose says, or some expert says. In other words, there's a credibility to the answer. So the seers have said, we have seen God, and if you follow this way, you will also see him. Finished. The master, he says, that is Ramakrishna, used to say, merely by saying hemp, hemp, you will not be intoxicated. You must procure hemp, prepare it, take it, and then wait a little while, and gradually you'll get intoxicated. Hemp, marijuana. And merely by saying, God, God, you'll not realize him. Practice disciplines and then wait for his grace. And he may add, wait for that flow of God's of divine grace. You will see him in time. Sometimes you see, so it goes on like that. Now you see, that means that a different technique has to be used. It means that instead of looking toward the outside through the avenues and windows of the eyes and the ears and so on, we then take up what is recommended by the Kathopanishad, that some wise person decided, as it were, to look inside. And it is through this inner intuition that this opening and awakening occurs, and that being that religion calls God gets revealed. In France, I think it's a crime to use the word God, so they tell me, because the religion in France is republicanism. And so we have to use different language. And what makes it more confusing is the word for mind and spirit is exactly the same, l'esprit. So in talking to people in France, I have to be very careful. They understand more the language of, I use the language of infinite invisible, divine source, supreme principle, the infinite pure consciousness, and language like this that is more recognizable to people who have more of a secular outlook. There's scope for everybody, you know. But if religions don't shift and change, and there's great depth in religion, and I know you're a Roman Catholic, so I'm going to address this specifically to you. In Roman Catholicism, there's a great, great depth of mystic experience that can be drawn on by every, not just Catholic, but every person in the world. And by studying the lives of saints and mystics, for example, you'll see what was the momentum and characteristic of building a huge cathedral such as Chartres Cathedral, which I had the wonderful privilege of seeing fairly recently, and building it, rebuilding it many times. Now there's some elements of political greed involved in it, but that's not the point. The ordinary artisan contributing toward that over many years, 20, 30 years, to build such a thing and rebuild it after fires and so on. What is the inspiration that people had? And when we look at the windows and the carvings and so on, it's not just for God's glory, it's also educating people to lead a better life. What is the great, great movement of the heart which enables that? I believe it's still there. But we probably have to tap into it in a more contemporary and modern way. And we certainly have to approach it in a broader way, reserving and retaining the depth which is there, but broadening I think it was Vivekananda who made a controversial statement. He, specifically in relation to Roman Catholicism, he said, in his day, this is a religion that has great, great depth, but not much breadth. And he compared it to Unitarianism, saying it has great, great breadth, but no depth. Now, that was in his day, and he was making a contemporary comment appropriate to his day and times. But you see, what has happened is the depth is there, and the breadth is gradually increasing. Why? Because the Lord of the universe is working from within, and I don't get a headache about it. And so, while it's interesting to explore these questions about why, I'm not really bothered by it, because I know the Lord of the universe is working within everyone and within every institution if they're aligned to that properly. And it is only in recent years, comparatively speaking, that we are able to discuss issues, or when I say we, I mean people of different faiths and religion are able to get together and work in harmony and fellowship toward a greater good, yet retaining the individual characteristics of religion. Vedanta doesn't propose, or certainly Neo-Vedanta that we're involved in, does not propose that you change your religion. It says that our aim is to make a Christian a better Christian, a Muslim a better Muslim, a scientific humanist a better humanist, if you want to extend it that way, a Hindu a better Hindu, a Buddhist a better Buddhist. Not to change anything. Very clear from Swami Vivekananda's lectures in the Parliament of Religion itself, his talks which he gave, making a much broader scope and using the Parliament of Religions as a beautiful platform to do this. And for your information, by the way, the next Parliament of Religions may well be in Edinburgh. That gives you a unique opportunity for people in Europe to attend such a wonderful function. Anyway, that's what I would answer. I'm not getting a headache over it. I'm not a missionary in that sense. I'm a missionary in the sense that everybody needs to be aware and access their own inner divinity. And we can use many methods, but everybody has an inner urge, a drive toward it, whether they know it or whether they don't. We have to have the confidence that the divine is working from within us, driving us forward and pulling us up from the outside, as it were. And these two combinations of pushing and pulling is really what is driving our so-called evolution or unfoldment. Our final evolutionary point is spiritual evolution.
Thank you, Swami.
I was telling some children yesterday, I said, you see, you think, and you need to repeat this, life is a journey and we are the traveler. We come from God and we are going toward God. If you entrench that idea, even in children, then they'll catch on to something very profound and very practical, and will be a dictum that will serve them well in understanding their purpose in this life. You know about the person who goes to a psychiatrist and says, because of modern technology, we have all of these social platforms, you see, and says, I've become addicted to Twitter. And the doctor says, I don't follow you. And so with that, I'll leave you. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. Thanks.
Thank you, Swami. Thank you.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Thank you so much.